I've never been particularly superstitious. I wouldn't call myself religious or spiritual. Obviously, it all depends on how you define those, but I don't consider either to be important to my life. I don't feel an urge to thank someone beside myself for the things I do, or attribute my success to the stars being aligned just right. Though I'd always been fascinated by the atmosphere surrounding folklore, I had never, as far as I can recall, considered the stories to be grounded in reality. Like most people, however, there came a time when I was forced to reassess my convictions. A little bit about myself. I don't want to reveal my specific personal information, but I am a filmmaker living in Los Angeles. If I was filling out a survey, the age range I would check off would be 18 to 35. I've always been greatly intrigued by atmosphere, dread, anxiety, fear, uncertainty, a grand cosmic terror. I'm all about that. The ability of a few simple lighting, camera, and sound tricks to completely immerse the audience and keep them on the edge of their seats has always been an interest of mine. Though, as much as flashy technical elements can draw one's attention, I believe it is the narrative that truly keeps said attention. What a story represents is what people come back to. But enough about me. This story ends a few short weeks ago. I had gone to the house of one of my friends for a brainstorming session on a script we had been asked to write and pitch to a major studio. Brainstorming quickly turned to layout, and in a few short hours, we had been fast at work on the first act. I won't get into intricate detail about the project, as we're still working on it and it could potentially be greenlit, but I can say it was a horror mystery by way of Zodiac with a touch of David Lynch. It's a story we had only dreamed of visualizing on the big screen, but now we had the opportunity to finally fulfill our vision. Horror films are usually rooted in some personal fear. Note that, when I say this, I'm not talking about the stereotypical corporate bullshit that plagues the film industry. I won't name names at this point, but I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about when I say that the studio pipeline is not the most fruitful for horror. The occasional notable project does come along, however. Artists who push through the system to deliver a work consistent with their vision. This story was a personal one to me. I've never been particularly superstitious. The first act concerned the exposition, not in that lazy Michael Bay way, where information is dumped on you at lightning pace and with no concern for depth, but more in a visual way. To us, exposition meant establishing atmosphere. What does this world look like? How does the character feel in this world? We felt it important to ensure that the audience was never at ease. This meant a lot of lingering shots, stretches of silence or ambient noise, and an anxious character. It was like my own experience, really. A constant sense of dread. No way out of this. Anxiety is through the roof and on its way to the moon. I could hear everything, but I didn't listen to it. A rainy day. I like rainy days. Fog oversees the town, as if enclosing it within its own arbitrary boundaries. Waking up to see rain and fog outside your cozily closed blinds is a feeling I'm not sure I can replicate or properly communicate. It's simultaneously peaceful and eerie. Not much sound to be noticed. An ambient, empty atmosphere. Stepping outside once the rain slows down to breathe in that peculiar air only adds to the experience. All of this is great, but why does it feel so sudden? Yesterday was sunny like no other day. I'm not complaining though. I'm sure it's apparent that I enjoy the current weather much more than yesterday's. There's a Starbucks nearby, so I went there. Not so much for a drink or a sandwich, but just to set a destination for myself to walk to. A friend works there at a cash register. Trey, I wondered if they were there that day. It was a Friday, an early morning shift, so it was likely. I texted Trey to make sure. Hey, you working a shift right now? 10 minutes. No response. Doesn't seem worrisome, right? After all, they could be working. Trey usually responds within a minute at these hours. Oh well. Shrug it off. Maybe it's a busy morning. I walked up to the building. The fog seemed to have closed in even more. Again, not complaining. But why is the place so empty? Friday morning typically means at least 10 cars in the lot, a few for the grocery store next door, and the rest rushing in for a dose of caffeine. It was empty. Not a car or a person in sight. I could see what is usually a busier road in the distance, going downhill. Again, Friday morning, but where are the people? I couldn't even hear the traffic ambience. An anomaly, I thought. I step into the Starbucks. One person at the corner table, one at the cash register. Neither of them Trey. Where are they? I looked down at my phone. My message hadn't even been seen. Cursory glance at the food later. I was out of there. I'll take a drive. A few hours went by. No response from Trey. Has anyone heard from them? I don't remember Trey talking about anything that was supposed to be happening that day. I throw a message into our group chat. 10 other people in there. Surely someone knew something. I was already on edge. I usually wake up to 10 or so memes in the group chat. And some small talk. But this morning was different. Something was different. 6 p.m. Nobody has seen my message. Starting to become dark. I've been either driving or at home all day. Aimless. Maybe a walk could clear my mind. There's a fair amount of space to walk. It's completely dark now. I saw at most 10 cars today. To be fair, I didn't venture out very far. Not even to downtown, but still. Would expect more than that. I walked out into the street. More ambience. Noise in the distance. I walked down the street, not in a rush. I thought I'd walk for an hour or so. Just enough, and not too much. There's a big bush at the end of the street with trees all around it. It's on a small hill with the road going to the right and connecting to a bigger street. As I walked towards it, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. That uncanny feeling of knowing you're not alone, even though all your senses point to the opposite. It got stronger as I got closer to the bush. I tried to shake off the feeling. Think about the project. I'd be hard at work on it in a couple weeks. Not so easy. I heard a rustling. Not the kind you hear when a leaf falls or a branch breaks. The kind you hear when you fall on the bush. I thought I saw a hand hugging one of the branches. Though it was dark. I couldn't really see shit. A faint sound. A voice. Definitely sounded familiar. Sounded like Nathan. A friend of ours, by the way. He's in that group chat I mentioned earlier. Bet they were all pulling a prank on me. I wish. That hand I thought I saw earlier had moved farther out from the bush, as if whoever or whatever was behind it had been slowly trying to get out. More of that voice. It was calling my name in this very unsettling, almost playful way. Like it wanted me to look at something. Like I was about to be told the most blood-curdling joke I'd ever heard. Yeah, no thanks. Enough walking for me. I've never been particularly superstitious. The second act was all about the mystery. What had the character encountered? Where did it lead? Who else knew about it? The next day I woke up to more of the same weather. The fog hadn't gone away, though it seemed to have cleared a little. And there were signs of nighttime rain. Gray skies. No reaction from any of my friends. Not even an acknowledgement that anyone had seen my messages. I kept thinking of the previous day's events. I couldn't think of any questions besides what, how, and where. Indeed, what was that? How did it know my name? How did it talk like Nathan? Where was everyone? Why didn't they respond? As I was going about my morning routine, I couldn't help but feel like I wasn't alone. Like if I turned around to look at the window, I'd see a face there looking at me, smiling with a wide grin. No point imagining that, I thought. I ate breakfast and did everything else in silence. I couldn't bring myself to watch or listen to anything. Even my thoughts felt silent. I walked outside. Didn't look much different from the previous day. Still no sign of activity in the chat. I felt taunted. Like this was the most elaborate, eerie prank ever. Best just to get through it, I thought. As I walked out into the street and towards that Starbucks, I stopped in the middle of the road. I heard something. Couldn't tell you what it was, though. It sounded like a voice. Shit. Again? It was getting louder. It sounded as though someone was running down the hill and panting, or moaning in fear. It was to my right. The road was surrounded by fog. I could see into the distance, but not far up. I felt chills down the back of my neck. The noise was getting closer. I thought I heard frantic footsteps. No, calling those footsteps makes them sound relaxed. These were the sounds someone made if they were running and stumbling, like they constantly switched between their hind legs and all fours. The moaning got louder. It wasn't even moaning at that point, more like a scream that was morphing into a faint roar. I could see something approaching me. It was moving quickly and looked to be disoriented. It was swaying side to side in rapid jerks, but its movements felt calculated, like it wanted me to be afraid. I was. As it got closer, I could make out a silhouette. My thoughts were racing, and I couldn't concentrate on its appearance. It looked tall and emaciated. I couldn't focus enough to make out much more. My thoughts were scrambled at that point. I felt like I had been spinning in place for the past 5 minutes. Dizzy, confused, shaking. I did my best to imitate running back to my home. I say imitate because I'm not sure what I did could be classified as running. I rushed hastily for a short while, unable to pull myself together and focus on my destination, and I remember slowly falling over. I kept hearing that sound throughout this. As I was running on the road, my eyes closed. I could still hear it getting closer. And then, it disappeared. I opened my eyes after what felt like 8 hours of sleep. I expected to be in my home, or in a hospital bed, but no. I was just as I had left myself before I turned down, on the road, in a twisted position, trying my best to concentrate my thoughts and my vision. I remembered hearing that sound. It was the last thing I heard before waking up. Wait, was it? I woke up suddenly, but why? I remembered hearing something else. It was loud, piercing, a scream perhaps, unlike any sound I heard from whatever I encountered. I sat up slowly, expecting to vomit or fall back down. Thankfully, neither of those happened, and I was surprised to see lights approaching me from my left. They were headlights. I heard a car slowly making its way towards me, as if the driver had already seen me and was making sure they didn't run me over. The car stopped some 10 to 20 feet away from me. I stood up, albeit slowly, as I was still somewhat dizzy, and began my way towards the car. It was a pickup truck, with one person inside at the wheel. I walked up to the car and tried to focus my vision on the driver. I saw they weren't moving. The closer I got, the more apparent it became. They were looking at me, not in a concerned or questioning way, but like I was a ghost, like I was that thing I encountered, and they were me. I got up to the door and looked into the driver's side window. The person still hadn't moved. Their eyes were open, and they weren't blinking. They didn't even move their head, suggesting that it wasn't me they were looking at. I heard the car turn off, along with the lights. The driver still hadn't moved an inch. I tried to follow their line of sight to see the subject of their gaze. I couldn't see anything worth staring at. Some trees, the road, a few bushes, some houses. Then, I saw it. The same thing that I had seen before I fell. It was on top of a tree sitting in a crouched position. It was looking at me, smiling with a wide grin. It wasn't moving either. All sound had dissolved at that point. I stared back at it, not moving myself. A minute seemed to pass and I once again heard that voice. The voice that called from the bush. It was different this time though. It sounded less like Nathan and more like someone's impression of him. The longer it spoke, the more it actually sounded like Nathan. It called out to me, but no longer in a playful way. This was a call of anger, annoyance, like it was irritated by my curiosity. I felt myself losing focus again. The last thing I remembered hearing was, "Don't look." We soon got to the third act of our draft. To be quite honest with you, Coming up with an effective conclusion would be a challenge. I found it increasingly difficult to look to my own experiences for inspiration as my memory of the days following the encounter was uncertain. It was like I dreamed through those days. I was still in somewhat of a shock during that writing session. I don't remember what happened to me in detail. I collected everything I could remember into as coherent of a plot as I could. There was one thing that stood out clearly in my memory, however. A few days later, complete guess. I honestly have no idea how long I was in that confused state. I distinctly remember looking down at my phone and expecting, for some reason, a notification. Don't know why. Maybe I felt my phone vibrate. Maybe I was just guessing. Maybe it was nothing at all. I pressed on the screen and saw nothing of note. No notifications, no text, no calls. Then I heard a faint alert sound followed by a pop-up. It was a text message. Looked like it was from the group chat. The time was 10:10 p.m. I don't remember who sent the message. I don't even remember actually opening the app. The message preview allowed me to see enough. The lone text read, "Don't look."